Stéphane Mallarmé continued and expanded upon the poetic themes initially introduced by Baudelaire after the latter's untimely death. Despite coming from a family of conventional middle-class government officials, Mallarmé embarked on his journey as a poet during his teenage years. His early life was marked by personal tragedies, including the loss of his mother when he was just 5 years old, and the untimely death of his younger sister when he reached the age of 15. These experiences left a profound impact on him, with his memories of his sister becoming a recurrent theme in his early poetic works. Influenced by the poetry of Baudelaire and Edgar Allan Poe, Mallarmé began to develop his unique theories on how poetry should be a vehicle for conveying intricate and profound experiences. Unlike Baudelaire and many of his contemporaries, Mallarmé did not lead an unconventional bohemian lifestyle. His true passion resided in the realm of poetry and the arts. By the early 1880s, he had risen to prominence as the foremost figure among a collective of poets and artists in Paris. He hosted gatherings of these writers and artists at his residence every Tuesday evening for over 2 decades. At these renowned soirees, he assumed a central role as a primary speaker and often underscored the interconnections between various art forms. Mallarmé possessed a deep interest in a wide range of artistic expressions, including Richard Wagner's operas, Impressionist paintings, notably Edouard Manet painted his portrait, modern music, theatre productions, and ballet. He firmly believed that each of these artistic disciplines had the capacity to convey unique and deeply personal visions, aligning with his overarching philosophy of poetry. Mallarmé crafted intricate poems intended for a discerning audience, which unfortunately limited their accessibility as they employed elaborate language and symbolism. However, this intricate quality lay at the heart of symbolism itself. Poetry's purpose was to communicate inner sensations and emotions through the poet's distinctive and personal linguistic style. The central aim was to harness the powers of imagination and symbolism rather than presenting straightforward renditions of the external world. Consequently, poets couldn't employ language in the same conventional manner as people did in their daily lives. Instead, poetic language became the medium for conveying the inner realm of experiences, desires, or fantasies, all of which held an equivalent claim to reality alongside the external world. In Mallarmé's celebrated L'après-midi du enfant from 1876, for example, he painted a vivid tableau of a faun's encounter with two nymphs, leaving it uncertain whether these nymphs were tangible entities or creations of the faun's imagination. This ambiguity was inconsequential because, from Mallarmé's viewpoint, the imaginative realm possessed the same status of reality as any external reality. As Mallarmé explained, the objective was to describe not the thing, but the effect it produces. This conceptual framework transcended into various artistic domains, as evidenced by Claude Debussy's renowned composition Prélude à l'après-midi d'un faun from 1894, which translated Mallarmé's themes into the language of music, and later Nijinsky's creation of a modern ballet from 1912, inspired by this music and thematic exploration. It is no coincidence that Stéphane Mallarmé's literary ideas and examples are frequently referenced in contemporary literary criticism and theory. His highly refined aestheticism and deep dedication to language led him to articulate a view of literature and literary meaning that had a profound impact on the modernist avant-garde, spanning from symbolism through surrealism and into postmodern cultural theory. Mallarmé firmly believed in the self-sufficiency and self-referentiality of literary language. a belief evident in his own eccentric and stylistically innovative poetry and prose. This perspective found its most dramatic realization in the structuralism and post-structuralism of 1960s and 1970s France. Figures like Roland Barthes, Michel Foucault, Jacques Lacan, and Jacques Derrida were influenced by Mallarmé's style and ideas. Julia Kristeva also considered Mallarmé an exemplary figure in the development of a subversive modernist revolution in poetic language in her early work. As a result of these theorists' immediate influence, a new generation of critics on both sides of the Atlantic has revisited Mallarmé, producing an impressive array of books and essays that increasingly position him as a vital force in a postmodern literary culture, still resonating with his enigmatic pronouncements even a century later. In many ways, Mallarmé's influence today is greater than it was during his lifetime, where it was limited to a small circle of friends and admirers. Mallarmé, despite his enduring legacy, was a relatively obscure English teacher at various lycées. He spent his evenings primarily dedicated to poetry, focusing on sonnets, short poems, and the prose poem genre that he inherited from Charles Baudelaire and continued to refine along with Arthur Rimbaud. He also produced critical treatises and even independently published a women's fashion magazine, La Dernière Mode, between 1874 and 1875. His complete works, aside from his extensive correspondence, can be found in a single substantial volume in the standard Pléiade edition. Despite his relative obscurity, Mallarmé is considered one of the greatest poets in the French language, known for a select few poems distinguished by their uncommon beauty, intelligence, and linguistic complexity. In 1871, after years of teaching in lycées across France, Mallarmé secured a position in Paris and moved his family there. He gradually befriended a circle of prominent fellow poets such as Paul Verlaine and much later Paul Valéry, as well as prominent painters. These gatherings, known as Mahdi, became famous for Mallarmé's discussions on aesthetics and poetry. The ideas he shared with his friends had a profound impact on fin de siècle French culture, particularly the Symbolist artistic movement. Mallarmé is often seen as one of the most significant figures in the development of poetic meaning and the role of the poet, both within and transcending the limits of French symbolism. Mallarmé's influence extended across these various directions. Post-structuralist approaches have explored the dense textuality of Mallarmé's writings, emphasizing the multiple effects of literary signification, and have contributed to a renewed interest in his work. Mallarmé's poetry, particularly his later poems, refers not to a representable world or the poet's consciousness, but to language itself. He pushed the boundaries of written language, exploring its materiality and its ability to generate multiple, often contradictory effects of signification. His poetic responsibility, as he saw it, was to yield the initiative to words. His poetry became visual, non-referential, and at times experimental, challenging the traditional separation between oral and written poetry. His works, like Un coup de dé jamais ne Bolihal Raza, have been studied by recent critics who emphasize the materiality of literary signification. His fascination with sky, foam, lace, or fog often metaphorically expresses the impermanence of language and its tendency to dissolve or transform into new elements. This fascination aligns with contemporary critical theories that focus on the multiple effects of written language, further cementing Mallarmé's relevance in contemporary literary theory, including post-structuralism and feminist theory.